Hello, this is Tomster on the behalf of Indestructible Productions once again. Alright, this time we're following the Banshee, as we called it. We're following how that progressed. So basically, we managed to obtain this old BC Rich Brass City was a body art collection from around, God, I can't remember when. Early 2000s anyway. And we decided to make a steampunk version of it. More on that later. But basically, like with everything else, you gotta start off by taking off the paint. Whereas in this case, you actually see that this is much less paint than it is a big sticker. Both Jay and I had a good laugh about this, at how easily the material came off the body. I'm not complaining. It's a lot easier to work with than trying to strip poly off a guitar body, which is just horrible. But yeah, using a God, what would that be called? Using a heat gun to warm up the surface, and then a paint scrape to basically scrape the paint off. Fairly straightforward, fairly simple. Nothing more to it, really. Thing was, we had to get off everything. Usually when you're taking off paint, you're very mindful of binding, but in our case, we were going to take the binding off anyway. Mainly because neither of us are really big fans of plastic binding. And, oh wait, this is funny. You can literally just rip this stuff right off with your bare hands. But yeah, anyway, like I was saying, neither of us are really big fans of plastic binding. And, well, it just wouldn't have suited this guitar. So that binding also had to go. Whether we were going to make different binding for it, or whether we were just going to route over the edges, which we ended up doing, the binding had to come off. And just like the paint job, the binding was fairly easy to remove as well.
That's some really bad bindings. How about me?
As you can see here, it didn't take too much just to take that piece off. Now the back paint was a different matter. Definitely, sure, different material, different finish, but as you can see, it doesn't take too much to pry this stuff off either. I think the hardest parts were actually trying to do the sides, just because the sides are always awkward to work with. But decided that that's a fairly easy fix when we get to the sanding stage. And the sanding stage. Once again, trying to use kind of low grit paper just to really pry that stuff off. It didn't really matter too much if we left marks and cuts and whatnot from the sandpaper, because this guitar was always destined to be burned. So we weren't that mindful of it. But of course, after prying everything off with, let's say, 60 to 80 grit, and trying to use that a bit, we did go up to about, I think, 100, just to kind of even out the scrapes. So using a orbital sander, just to get off all the more awkward spots. Here I'm going to realize very soon that this big orbital sander is probably not exactly the best way to go, so I go and get this smaller one. Well, again, very slow, tedious work, but it does work out in the end. And to get some really quick results, we use the belt sander. basically using the belt sander just to get to the more awkward places, and really these places are very hard to do. If you're going to do it by hand, it's going to take forever, and if you were going to do it an orbital sander, it wouldn't fit in the nooks and crannies. Preparing the neck, all we do is light sanding down just to get most of the lacquer off. Once again, with the big nook in the headstock, have to go and do it manually, because sticking that in a machine will more than likely break the entire headstock.
Why you record?
And of course I forgot to put the camera off. That was my bad. Now this was our first attempt.
It worked.
At burning the body of the guitar. Did not really pan out. We got a blowtorch, very small, handy, handheld blowtorch, and frankly, we forgot one thing. It is, I think, at time of recording, it was about minus somewhat close to 20 degrees. And, well, way too cold to be using one of these things. And as you can see, it's not really doing anything. Sure, it looks pretty, but that's about it. So we head back inside and start working on the neck and the headstock. Basically, what I'm doing, I'm just scorching the entire headstock, just to give it that burned effect. More using the heat gun here as, sorry for that. More using the heat gun here as a paintbrush instead of peeling paint off, which is meant for it. But it gave us the right sort of effect. It was feathered enough so that it could have been done with, let's say, like a spray gun. But in the name of authenticity, we went ahead and actually scorched it properly, well and good, with a heat gun. Both of us really like the result and have gotten a lot of good feedback from that. Actually, because of this neck, one client wished to get his guitar's neck burned as well, or scorched, sorry. Burning will happen later. Indeed, if you haven't seen pictures of the Banshee yet, go and check out our Facebook page. It is in the description below. Check out the album and be sure to subscribe for more. There is plenty to come. Thank you for watching. See you again. Bye bye.